Nothing to disclose. So our team did a randomized controlled trial of this workshop called Mind Over Matter, Healthy Bowels, Healthy Bladder. I encourage you to read this paper to learn more about the intervention. So this is a hybrid effectiveness and implementation study. So I came in on the implementation and dissemination side, and we used the RE-AIM framework to guide our study. And we especially looked at adoption. Does the community that is trained to deliver this workshop actually do so within the year after the RCT? And maintenance, do they do at least 2 workshops in the 18 months following the RCT? We found that about two-thirds of our communities did offer at least 1 workshop in the 12 months after the RCT, and half of them went on to offer at least 2 workshops in the 18 months following. Barriers, we're not surprised to find that limited resources is a barrier in terms of money and staff. Competing priorities for the organizations. These organizations were not necessarily focused on this problem. They were just, in some cases, senior centers, things like that. And there was some difficulty recruiting participants, especially in small rural communities. So those were barriers. We were told that facilitators, some had to do with the design of the workshop itself. Particularly, it was a 3-session workshop, and many similar workshops have 6, 7, 8, or even up to 12 sessions. So we found that having partners, community partners that would help with marketing and other tasks involved in the workshop was a facilitator. Having a staff member in the organization that was dedicated to health promotion, not necessarily just on this issue, but in general, was very helpful. And of course, community interest varied, and it was much easier to recruit in communities where interest was high. So we can conclude that our workshop, Mind Over Matter, Healthy Bowels, Healthy Bladder, is effective in improving incontinence symptoms. There was high adoption and maintenance in the communities that were involved in our RCT. There was a high level of fidelity with which the workshop was delivered. We observed the workshops and took note of that. Really, in terms of content and delivery, there were no lapses in fidelity. We did find a few lapses in terms of having fewer or more than the recommended number of participants in each workshop. So after we collected these data, we did take our implementation package and revise it based on what our communities told us about the barriers and facilitators, and that has turned out to be quite helpful, and this research is ongoing, and so I think it's improving. And our workshop is now living on its own. It's being disseminated without much involvement of the research team. So that's kind of what we were hoping for. We consider that a success. Thank you very much.
Are there any questions? I have a question for you. So
Sure.
You talked about the facilities that had a health promotion staff member was helpful.
Yeah.
Was the health promotion staff member the one who delivered the program?
No, not always, sometimes.
Yeah.
So, we obviously can quantify these results, but I would consider this a bit more of a qualitative type of study. And qualitatively, anecdotally, there was one community that had a very enthusiastic, very energetic person who was hired to do this and nothing else. And that was the community that you could see in the previous slide that offered 5 workshops in the 18 months following the RCT. And so obviously that's a huge boon to that community being able to carry this out in perpetuity.
So in the initial phase, in each centre, how many people were trained to actually deliver the program? Was it just 1 or was there more?
So we trained 2 people in each organization. So there would be an alternate if something happened. And that is our recommendation in the implementation package that we created. We recommend that a community make sure to have at least 2 people that can be trained to do this. And those people do not have to have anything to do with the health profession. In most cases, in all cases in the RCT, These were people that were not healthcare workers. They were simply women from the community that were trained to deliver this.
Thank you.
Can you tell me a little bit about the content of the workshops? Did you?
Yeah, it's very similar to what I think people refer to as first line treatments. You know, things about diet, fiber and fluid intake, some Kegels exercises, some recommendations for seeking healthcare if say the workshop is not successful for you, what you should do next to seek care. A lot of very, low hanging fruit is what we would call it. And among these women who did not have, very severe acute problems, that turned out to be helpful.
Thank you.